Assalamualaikum, good evening. You're now with me, Yusuf Shukri, for TVS Nightline. We begin with this story. Sarawak stands ready to activate contingency measures, including the PCDS 2030, should the West Asia conflict persist and impact the economy. Minister of Tourism, Creative Industry and Performing Arts, Datuk Seri Abdul Karim Rahman Hamzah, says early action is key to safeguarding public well-being and maintaining economic stability. He says the impact on Malaysia remains manageable so far and less severe than in neighbouring countries such as the Philippines and Thailand. He also expresses confidence that the federal government will take proactive steps to address any developments that may affect the national economy.
Mestilah sekiranya perkara melencung menjadi mudarat, kritikal, saya percaya Kerajaan Sarawak, Kerajaan Malaysia ada kontingensinya. Bagaimana hendak meringankan bebanan rakyat. Pada masa ini pun harga minyak tak banyak berubah. Kita kadang-kadang terpesong sedikit dengan apa yang berlaku di luar. Tak ada masalah sangat. Diturunkan kadar pengisian dalam mobil itu daripada 300 liter ke 200 liter. Berapa orang sampai 300 liter? Saya pun bawa kereta pun saya satu bulan tak sampai 300 liter minyak. Paling-paling banyak pun 200 liter saja. That is the contingency.
A related development, the global oil supply situation appears to be stabilizing after Iran allowed several oil tankers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Moreover, Sarawak is also adopting a positive approach by viewing the tourism sector as a driver of growth, ensuring the industry remains resilient amid global uncertainties. Karim assures that the Sarawak government will continue to monitor developments closely and is ready to adjust policies as needed to safeguard the interests of the people and the state's economy. In solidarity with Gaza, Sarawak has suspended all official and non-official programs to the US since 2024. Karim affirms this, adding that although Malaysia is a small country compared to others around the world, the boycott is important to symbolize Malaysia's stance on the humanitarian crisis.
Even Kementerian punya program in US, I have stopped it. There is one program which called PCDS. CMS ke PCDS ke, which is done every year in January. I have stopped it for the last 2 years. No more going to US. After what they did in Gaza, in Palestine.
The ongoing strikes involving Iran, Israel and the US have also affected the international community's perception of the US. Hence, Karim encourages Malaysians to travel to other destinations that are equally attractive, such as China, South Korea and Japan. The Middle East conflict escalates with new attacks hitting Iran, growing regional tensions and economic fallout across global energy markets. Though diplomatic efforts continue, military preparations and strikes continue to push the region toward further instability. Hadi Gui joins us with the details.
All right, thank you, Yusuf. The US and Israeli forces strike the Iranian port city of Bandar Kamir near the strategic Strait of Hormuz, killing 5 and wounding 4. Loud explosions ripple across northern Tehran, sending smoke rising from multiple impact zones. The blasts mark a continuation of the escalating conflict, bringing the war closer to Iran's heartland. And as these attacks intensify, Washington weighs its next moves, with military planners preparing for potential operations along Iran's coast. Amid the escalating strikes, the Pentagon prepares for possible ground operations, including raids on Kark Island and other key sites near the Strait of Hormuz. Any deployment would involve special operations forces and conventional infantry, stopping short of a full-scale invasion. Planning continues even as final approval for troop movement have not yet been granted. While U.S. planning unfolds, Tehran responds with warnings, raising concerns that the conflict could escalate further despite ongoing diplomatic efforts. Iranian officials say the United States is secretly planning a ground offensive, even as it publicly engages its diplomacy. The warning from Iran's parliament speaker adds to mounting tension and underscores the risk of the conflict spreading further in the region. At the same time, the war's impact extends beyond Iran, with civilian casualties in Lebanon, drawing condemnation from Tehran. At the same time, Iran condemns Israel for the death of 3 journalists in Lebanon, describing the attack as targeted assassinations and violations of international law. The incident intensifies regional hostilities and highlights the broader consequences of the Middle East war beyond Iran. And back in Israel, public sentiment against the conflict is rising, with protests spreading across major cities despite wartime restrictions. Hundreds gathered in Tel Aviv and other cities on Saturday to protest the Middle East war in unauthorized demonstrations that security forces moved to disperse. Weekly protests launched after the February 28 U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran began with only a few dozen participants, but have steadily grown, though attendance remains far below last year's Gaza protests. Several former parliamentarians and left-wing organizations, including Standing Together, Peace Now, and Women Wage Peace, joined Saturday's rallies. Law enforcement officers were seen removing demonstrators in Tel Aviv, while similar scenes are reported in Haifa. Under wartime security regulations, gathering of more than 50 are banned, yet the protests continue without official authorization. Meanwhile, the conflict spreads economically, targeting key industrial sites and energy infrastructure across the region. Now, more attacks were reported by Iran on 2 major aluminium plants in the Gulf, raising economic stakes as Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis enter the conflict. The war as we know it has spread across the region, disrupting global energy markets and threatening the world economy. In Tehran, 2 early Sunday blasts shake the city, though targets remain unclear. Local media reports an Israeli missile hit its office building, leaving shattered windows and streets littered with debris, along with damage to surrounding buildings. These developments ripple into Asia, prompting governments to adjust domestic energy policies. Speaking of Asia, Taiwan announces a freeze on LPG prices for April to stabilize domestic supply. Essential feedstocks, including ethylene and propylene, are prioritized for downstream industries, ensuring critical sectors remain operational despite disruptions in regional energy markets. And beyond domestic measures, securing vital shipping routes become a priority for regional energy imports. Thailand, on the other hand, reaches an agreement with Iran to allow safe passage of its oil vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian forces had previously slowed shipping to a near halt during the conflict, raising concerns over fuel imports. The agreement restores confidence that disruptions like those in early March will not recur. And according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, more than 80% of crude oil and liquefied natural gas passing through the strait is destined for Asia. That's all the recap from me. Let's head back to Yusuf for the rest of tonight's report.
Now, as reported by Handy earlier, Iran's parliament speaker accused the US on Sunday of pursuing a 15-point plan to achieve its war goals after failing to achieve them by military force, warning that any ground attack on the country would face a decisive response. On Telegram, Mohammad Baghir Khalibaf says the US is openly calling for negotiations while secretly planning a ground attack. And on this note, he says Iranians are prepared for any ground operation by US forces, vowing a decisive response for any such attack. Baghir stresses that trust with the US no longer exists as they preach about one thing, but their action reflects otherwise. Early on Wednesday, the Shiite country rejected a 15-point U.S. plan to end the war, saying any ceasefire would take place only on Tehran's terms and timeline. Iran outlined 5 conditions for ending the war, including a complete halt to aggression and assassinations. It came amid reports about U.S. plans for a ground attack on Iran as thousands of U.S. troops deploy to West Asia, pending a decision by President Donald Trump. Now, the German Road Freight Association has warned that the sharp rise in diesel prices is placing a significant strain on the haulage industry and called on the government for help. According to the head of Germany's Federal Association of Road Haulage, Logistics and Waste Management, BGL, Dirk Engelhardt, since the start of the war in Iran, the price has risen by around 46 US cents per liter. With a monthly mileage of 10,000 kilometers and fuel consumption of 30 liters per 100 kilometers, this results in additional costs of around 1,200 euros per month for a single truck. In recent years, the average fuel consumption for larger trucks has been between 35 to 40 liters per 100 kilometers. He says for a fleet of 50 vehicles, this amounts to more than 700,000 euros per year and would affect consumer prices sooner or later. As diesel prices rise, the transport sector is calling on the government for support. Swift measures are needed that do not involve a lot of bureaucracy to secure companies' liquidity and maintain supply chains. A diesel price cap would also help limit the burden on businesses and prevent insolvencies among small and medium-sized enterprises. The measures could also include a refund of the carbon dioxide levy on diesel or a suspension of the carbon dioxide component of the truck toll. What counts, he adds, is that the measures are targeted and reach transport companies directly. Right, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi guarantees that the delivery of Malaysian humanitarian aid to Gaza will be eased through the Rafah border starting April. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim says the assurance comes after he recently contacted Abdel Fattah to request cooperation in facilitating the shipment of 374 tons of Malaysian aid to Gaza. Through a statement on social media, Anwar says the guarantee allows immediate aid to reach over 100,000 needy residents in Gaza. He stresses that Malaysia will not yield to any obstacles, particularly from the Zionist regime, which continues to hinder humanitarian efforts. Anwar adds that Malaysia will continue to stand as a principled and dignified voice in defending the rights of the oppressed. He also appeals for prayers that the process is smooth and the aid reaches the people in Gaza safely. In a bid to address the state's doctor shortage, the Sarawak government doubles its annual sponsorship for those pursuing medicine in Unibas from 40 to 80. Deputy Premier Dato' Ahmad Dr. Sim Kui Hian says the move will effectively strengthen the pipeline of local medical talent. He stresses that prioritizing local training is key to ensuring graduates remain in Sarawak to serve the community.
Premier used to have only 40 medical students a year funded by Sarawak government to study in Unimas, and because of shortage of doctors, Premier has increased to 80 now. And so I hope that Sarawakian took the opportunity, always apply Unimas first. Because people like Dr. Wong, who is got the award from certificate from Prime Minister of Malaysia to set the top research doctors, specialists in Malaysia. They're all Unimas graduates. Premier want to start out with Unimas first because why? These are local, staying local in Sarawak. And you send them to KL. How about if they don't come back? You send them to Australia, they lucky don't come back. We can send them to Australia, but you bye-bye, lo. It doesn't solve our problem, no?
At the same time, the government is developing the Public Health Master Plan 2050 to meet rising healthcare demand. The plan forecasts disease trends and workforce needs, including chronic conditions such as cancer and heart disease, to better plan specialist services. Sim adds that efforts also focus on strengthening systems through the Sarawak Medical Committee SMC and enhancing public-private collaboration to improve healthcare quality. And those are the updates on TVS Nightline. I'm Yusuf Shukri. Selamat Hari Raya and good night.